Hi everybody, here we are. My name is Cristina Barbero and I'm very happy to moderate this workshop at Sustains 2022, our 10th edition here in this beautiful city, Nice. I'm going to moderate this workshop. The title is Innovative Financing for Energy Efficiency Investment, Triggering Actions and Unlocking Social Impact. We have impressive speakers this morning, and we will have this presentation from the speakers, and then at the end there will be some question and answer, and I think there would be more than one. I'm very pleased to introduce the speakers, in particular Francesca Passeri from Eurocrowd. She's going to give us a short presentation about how innovative financing can reduce barriers in energy efficiency retrofitting. Then we have Benjamin Kirchler. Hope that the name is correct. I mean, I speak the correct name, Kirchler, from Unilinz, in charge of the presentation about Green Food Project. Quite interesting application of crowdfunding to sports. Then we will have Dimitris Karamitos from Base Basel. He will present his project, EA initiative, and as a case study, as a pilot, Jonas Hildebrand from Danfoss. He could describe their pilot about this initiative. And at the end, there will be the CEO of Outland Solution in charge of the project of Superhero Project, Thomas Messerly, and we will have questions and answers. Please don't forget to drop questions into this chat. What's the framework? And then I give the word to the first speaker. We know that financing, we know that energy efficiency measures are a very mature technology. What's the problem? That we have to fill this gap between energy efficiency and how we can proceed to spread this efficiency through the construction world. And this workshop is going to put a focus in particular on an innovative financing scheme, because what we need is to fill this gap between financing schemes and energy efficiency measures on a regional, national level, in order to create a condition for support private finance for energy efficiency investment. So innovative financing schemes for energy efficiency wants to progressively maximize the ratio of public funds as well as private finance. We will see through this workshop how we can cope with these problems in order to fill this gap. Now I give my word to Francesca Passeri. I'm very pleased that you're here from Eurocrowd, and she will present how innovative financing can reduce.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you.
Please, Francesca. Go.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to open this session. I hope that you can all hear me properly. I think it's of utmost importance that we discuss, as you were introducing, the relevance of thinking and designing new financing schemes that can support energy efficiency and overall the green transition. So we're currently facing a situation where I believe that energy crisis and gas crisis are supporting even further the need, are creating an urgency that is now everyone is able to see. We were aware that we needed this transition because climate change and its effects on societies and economies. But now I think that with these two combined crises, gas crisis, energy crisis, we are really feeling the need to transition towards different sources of energy in our day-to-day lives. And we feel this from an individual perspective, so from households, but also for from the economy perspective. So of course, companies will be very much affected by this. And we find ourselves in a situation in which public finance is strained. This has been so for a number of years. And I am lucky enough to represent Eurocrowd, as I was well introduced by moderator. And Eurocrowd focuses, of course, on representing the crowdfunding sector, so one segment of the alternative finance industry. And within our sector, so within crowdfunding, we have been witnessing a partnership or a clear preference between the creation of crowdfunding projects and financing of energy efficiency measures that can go from renewable energies, but also to deep retrofit of buildings. We have been studying this dynamic and I'm trying to understand how this could be brought to the maximum level of benefit and efficiency to all parties involved, which in our case are, of course, companies, but also individuals that are not only beneficiaries, but can also become investors alongside institutional investors. So we have quite a complex framework that we have to deal with, but we have seen that over the past years, crowdfunding in energy efficiency applications has been a growing sector. So in this framework, we're also witnessing a transformation of the crowdfunding industry. So we have been lucky enough to have witnessed the entry into force of a European crowdfunding regulation. That would mean harmonized rules for investors and companies across all 27 member states. This hasn't been so far. So each member state was allowed to regulate or not regulate crowdfunding in their own national territories. But now, as of, well, actually 10th of November 2023, there will be a unique and standardized set of rules for all those that want to use crowdfunding, either to raise funds or to invest. And so within this framework, of course, we can see that a number of opportunities can unlock, especially, not only, but especially in the field of energy efficiency. And in trying to fill that gap, that investment gap that was highlighted in the introduction of this session. So we know that crowdfunding is a sort of democratic, if we can call it so, financing tool. It leverages on a large crowd of investors to provide funds to specific initiatives. And we know that transition towards green energy or energy efficiency overall is a highly perceived priority among the average citizens. So we know that there is a willingness, a push towards moving from the more traditional energy sources towards a different model of financing energy or exploiting and generating energy. And so in this sense, crowdfunding can actually provide the economic or financial power to people to basically select and provide funding to those initiatives that they think are most needed or that deserve the most funding. And in this case, this is already a first big step that we were not able to see in other settings. Crowdfunding helps indeed combine the financial return that each and every investor, even retail investors, so average citizens, could get from their investments with their social expectations, with their social preferences. And so, of course, this has been one of the drivers of what I was mentioning before. So the strong partnership between energy efficiency projects and the use of crowdfunding as a tool for financing. In this democratic process of financing, we, of course, must underline and keep in mind the fact that crowdfunding allows for different types of also financial benefits. So we don't only see that there is the possibility for the average citizens to get a return, not only in output from, for example, the installation of new solar panel implants, but also from the economic perspective. But we also see that the fact that crowdfunding allows to invest even small amount of money in different ventures, in different projects, allows for what is called diversification and therefore dilution of risk. And this is, of course, another aspect that plays in favor of financing or developing innovative financing schemes for energy efficient initiatives. Diversification of risk means a reduced exposure, means that not only one investor has to basically carry the burden of the entire investment gap or financing gap or need of the company, but this can be redistributed. And this is an incentive because there is a reduced exposure and reduced, let's say, risk of losing your entire capital. Another factor that we must consider is that crowdfunding, this combination of different investors, provides for additional liquidity. So we are actually enabling the average citizens to move its savings into an investment opportunity that can generate returns, that can reward those initiatives that are dearest to their hearts. But at the same time, we are unlocking a significant amount of private capital that can be pushed into specific real economy initiatives. And we must never forget that crowdfunding has shown in the past that it can be combined with different funding sources, such as public funding. And so we see that there is this type of synergy, this new pattern that is developing and that has been developing for years. And we are now facing these moments in which the urgency and the need to push for this transition and the opportunities offered by the new crowdfunding setting are, of course, leading the way or allowing for a whole new range of financial schemes to be designed. I just want to close with a small example, a specific example on what we have been working on in the past, just to give you a practical insight on what I have been theoretically presenting so far. So we have had a study on how crowdfunding could support those deep retrofit interventions in the context of social housing. So the problem there was that these buildings needed deep retrofit interventions to then allow for a more efficient and less expensive generation of energy. And of course, this would go to the benefit of families that would own apartments in those buildings. But we were facing a situation of mixed ownerships of the building. So we have majority of the building that was publicly owned by the regional authority, and we have some private owners that, unfortunately, being in social housing context, were not always able to afford the investment burden that was needed to kick off the entire deep retrofit initiative. And so we plugged crowdfunding into this financial scheme by designing a scheme that would finance the investment need that would have been requested by those households that were owners of the building but couldn't face that type of investment. We externalized the burden of that investment to other investors, the crowd of investors that was out there, in a way that we could support the unlocking and the initiation of the energy efficiency intervention. And then once the intervention would have been completed, we would have studied level of contribution that would allow households to still have a saving in their energy expenses, but at the same time would remunerate those investors that had used crowdfunding to pre-finance the energy efficiency intervention. So in this case, through the study together with Arter, the regional development agency in Emilia-Romagna, we were able to combine sort of a solution or proposal towards solving the investment need, as well as designing a scheme that could provide as well partly some social impact on the territory. So there are applications, and this is only one of the examples, but I'm sure that more will be explored throughout the session. I once again thank you for the invitation. I look forward to all that is going to be discussed, and I wish you all a very good day.
Thank you, Francesca. It was quite interesting what you said about crowdfunding and how we can use crowdfunding for a vast range of sectors for energy efficiency measures, from social housing to, for instance, sports sector. And regarding sports sector, I'm pleased to present the next speaker. We are going to see and to hear a presentation about the project Greenfoot project from Benjamin Kirchler, University of Linz. I'm very interested about this project because it's one of the applications of the crowdfunding applied to the sports sector. Please, Benjamin, we are very pleased to hear you.
Yes, can you see the slides now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, then thank you very much for having me. Today I'm presenting you the Horizon 2020 project called Greenfoot. So in a nutshell, the main goal of Greenfoot is to use the innovative financial tool, crowdfunding, to finance energy efficiency and renewable energy measures in the context of professional football. So to be more precise, we want to put PVs on the roof of stadiums so that the clubs can produce its own renewable energy. We want to change the lighting and replace it with more efficient one so that the carbon footprint decreases. And ideally, we want to find this by the crowd. As already mentioned, this is a Horizon 2020 project, and we are working with 9 partners from 7 different countries, and you can see them listed down below. As you can see, we are closely working also with football associations, with crowdfunding experts, and energy experts. And we started in September 2020, and today I will show you what we have achieved in the past, with a slight focus on the potential of crowdfunding that we have analyzed via a survey. Before I go to the results, the motivation. So why is football relevant? And in general, we see that the building sector is the largest single energy consumer and accounts for roughly 40% of the total energy demand in Europe and for 36% of the greenhouse gases. And considering that there are more than 1.5 million sports-related buildings, it's definitely worthwhile to talk about these buildings. And moreover, we see that sports buildings, stadiums were never designed to be energy efficient. So with rather low investments, you could already achieve a lot. However, we see that the renovation rates are very low. And in my opinion, there are basically 2 main reasons why this happens. First of all, there is a lack of funding or restricted access to capital. So especially for smaller clubs, they still simply don't get the capital needed to finance such investments. And secondly, there is a general knowledge about energy efficiency costs, but also the saving potential. And of course, ideally, we would like to have all the football clubs or stadiums look like the Werder Bremen one, that produce its own energy and are fully sustainable. And yeah, this lack of funding leads us also to the next slide, why using crowdfunding. And in my opinion, there are various reasons why crowdfunding could be a very good tool and fit this story. First of all, football clubs have a large community, so the potential crowd is really big. Secondly, it's the most important sport in Europe, so we could also increase the awareness of sustainability by working together with football clubs. And of course, citizens can, in crowdfunding, decide where their money goes, for what purposes it is used, and knowing that people have a preference for sustainable projects, this would also fit the story very, very well. Crowdfunding comes in various models, and as already mentioned by Francesca, the equity-based and the lending-based have now been newly regulated, become more transparent, so the potential to use those for larger investments has even increased. But for small projects, for more philanthropic ones, you could use, for instance, donation-based crowdfunding. For medium-sized, reward-based would be very suitable, because you can give people a payback and combine it with, for instance, giving them jersey or free tickets to watch some games. And yeah, but however, this is just let's say, a assumption that fans are the ideal crowd, that they are willing to participate in such things. However, evidence is lacking, and therefore we have conducted a survey to bridge this research gap. And we have done it in the countries where we are also closely working together with the football associations. Overall, we have asked 3,500 participants from those 4 countries, and this is a representative sample. So it means that we did not only contact football enthusiasts, but also people of older age and so on. And basically, and to pinpoint it down, we wanted to identify who represents the ideal crowd. What is their willingness to participate, or how high is the willingness to participate, and how much money would they actually be willing to spend for such a campaign. And there are various factors that influence this decision and shape it. And one of the most important is, of course, interest in football, environmental consciousness, but also crowdfunding literacy. And we asked the people whether they are familiar with crowdfunding, and the results show that there is still a lack of knowledge. So crowdfunding is still novel, and not, especially in Azerbaijan, for instance, 70% of the participants responded that they have no idea what crowdfunding is about. The figure looks slightly better in other countries in Europe, but it's still, by increasing knowledge, we could also gain interest in such campaigns. And we also asked them what motivates them to participate in such a campaign. And here we find that both altruistic as well as financial motives play a key role. So roughly 60% of the people either choose the option to get a good financial return, so they consider it a good investment, but it's also important to help protect the environment. So when designing such a campaign, of course, the focus should rely also on the environmental impact. And we can also see that support the community or helping good and innovative ideas is also very often chosen. And to grasp the idea how the general interest is to invest in such a football-specific crowdfunding campaign, we also included an experimental setting. So we showed them a hypothetical crowdfunding campaign. The half of the participants saw a football stadium that was going to be renovated, where we decreased the carbon footprint, and the other one saw a more socially framed or a public building, so a school or a library. And the idea here is to have a reference group. So how does the football specific one compare to this more neutrally framed one? And as you can see here in the results, we ask them, how likely are you to participate? We see that the school setting is perceived as more likely, or as more is preferred by the majority. However, this is not really, doesn't come as a surprise, because of course most people would be in favor that schools get renovated. In the other hand, the football's case is more specific, so maybe here the target group looks slightly different. And that's indeed what we also found in the regression result. So we used a ordered probit model, and here you can see the marginal effects. This means we controlled for a lot of factors that could also influence this decision to participate in a campaign. And here we are looking at fans versus non-fans. And what we see is that indeed fans represent the main target group. So they are 10% more likely to participate in this campaign compared to non-fans. And they fall with 8 percentage points more likely in this very likely category. So this shows really fans are the ideal crowd, and they are more likely to participate in such a campaign. And afterwards, we also asked them what reward they would like to choose for investing 1,000 euros in this specific campaign. And interestingly, most of the participants chose free electricity for their home for 1 year. And this shows us also how we could design such a campaign. For instance, if we install PV, it would make sense to kind of share the energy generated or the savings with the people that invest so that we can engage them even more. A slight drawback was that this payback of 1,000 euros, including a merchandise product, was only chosen by 8% of the people. However, this figure could still look differently, in my opinion, once we really work with a real campaign and people then say, okay, I'm really admiring this football player and I would like to have this jersey, maybe also with a signature. So this could look differently, in my opinion. And the next question was, how much money would you invest? And here we showed them the national stadium and asked the people, how much would you invest in this campaign? And the results are shown for all 4 countries. However, the figures look quite similar, in my opinion. One main takeaway is that most people would actually invest some money. So only 26, for instance, in France, decided not to participate. This figure is really low also in Ireland with only 15%. However, also the very high amounts of money are not very frequently chosen. So the majority would either invest a low or a medium amount of money. And again, afterwards, we conducted a regression analysis and tried to identify the main factors or determinants that shape this decision. And here again, we see that football fans invest higher amounts, that crowdfunding literacy is also positively correlated. So people who have already participated in a campaign are also more likely to invest in such a campaign. Moreover, environmental concerns are also important. So people who care about the environment, again, think that this decision is a very good one, and they are likely to join the campaign. And yeah, we also asked them who should be supported. And again, here the results fit our story very well, in my opinion, because as I mentioned in the beginning, it's the small clubs, the amateur clubs that really need our help and lack the financial means. And as you can see here, 37, so roughly 2/5 of the people chose amateur club. They would like to support these clubs, while also the national team is highly perceived. Maybe professional clubs, people see that they have the money, they could do this by their own, and therefore only 60% chose this option. And on the right-hand side, I just gathered all the information together with the contributions, and I split it between fans and non-fans. And as you can see here, indeed, fans again have this higher willingness to contribute. So 15% of the fans would invest a high contribution, and are almost 42% a medium contribution. So we see here that the potential of this is really high. And again, the no contribution is relatively low for fans. And yeah, I guess the key findings already spoke about most of them, that 44% of all people were indicated to be interested in football. So the crowd is indeed very large, and we should definitely focus on protecting the environment. So if we design such a campaign, then this should be one of the main parts of it. And the discount on the electricity bills is the most chosen reward. And we find that if so in the case of football, especially fans would like to join the campaign, and therefore this group represents the main target group. Enlarged or other groups that are also very interested, or the ideal crowd would be young, better educated, slightly more income, interested in football, and environmental conscious. And already at the end of my presentation, so what are the next steps? So this is just one part of the study that we have conducted so far, but we have also analyzed various types of football facilities, so small and medium-sized stadiums, training facilities, and headquarters. So we collected a lot of information there about their energy bills, about the building plans, and tried to analyze how the various interventions would work. So PV installations, upgrading the lighting, replace it with LEDs, upgrading the heating and cooling systems are just a few of the interventions that we had a look at. And then we evaluated the impact. So how does it affect the image of the club? Is it economically feasible? and how high is the environmental impact in the sense of how would the carbon footprint decrease if we implement such a measure. And based on the results of the survey, we can also analyze the success rate, because of course we know now who is the target group, how large is the fan base, and so on. And this should then come together and we want to develop a catalog that we can then show to interested clubs. And if it's a small club, of course, we can give them an idea what could be done, how high is the investment cost, what is the payback time, and so on and so forth, and then develop a crowdfunding scheme that would best fit this story. And currently, and this is now the next steps, we are in touch with different sports clubs from all the member countries, so Azerbaijan, also now Belgium, France, Ireland, Malmö FF, and we try to find clubs that would like to use the Greenfoot crowdfunding scheme to make football greener. I'm now at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. The project you presented is very interesting. So I think there will be questions after, in our question and answer section, because crowdfunding applied to sports group, in particular football. It's a quite interesting one, and for sure people are interested.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Benjamin. Now it's time to introduce the next presentation and the next speakers, in particular Dimitris Karamitsos and Jonas Hildebrand, about their project, EAAS initiative. Dimitris, I don't know if you are with us. I think, okay, you are here. Yeah, I'm very pleased to see you. Welcome, and I give you, stop sharing. Okay. You can start with your presentation, Dimitris. Karamitsos from BASE, Basel. It's an agency specialized in innovative projects. And please go.
The previous speaker has to stop sharing his screen.
Okay, Benjamin, I think you have to stop sharing your screen. Thank you. Thanks.
Sorry.
No issue at all. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, we see your screen. Go.
Super. So first of all, many thanks for the invite, and really excellent to see this type of events taking place, where I think it's really key to share knowledge on some of the activities that are happening in Europe to accelerate our energy transition, and to do that while lowering some of the market barriers that are happening. So here, I will present to you the project called Efficiency as a Service, which is as well a European funded project under the H2020 program. We're coordinating this project as BASE together with three partners, which you see here on the screen, which is Agoria in Belgium, Anese in Spain, and Energy in the Netherlands. So very briefly, a few words about BASE. So BASE, for the audience to know, we are a foundation based in Switzerland. We were founded about 20 years ago by the Swiss government, and we are a specialized collaborative center of the UN Environment Program. And what do? We really focus on designing innovative business models and financial mechanisms that help accelerate investments into energy efficiency, renewable energy, and climate-driven solutions. So we do that in a variety of applications, which goes from, for instance, solar panels, e-mobility, to cooling technologies, heating technologies, lighting, but also more upstream sometimes in designing taxonomies for the financial industry. So that being said, a little bit step back, why did we focus onto this project in Europe? So first of all, for the audience to know, energy demand is projected to increase by 50% by 2050. And this is an increase that we cannot really stop. It's connected to, of course, population growth, demand growth, GDP growth across Europe. The second part is that renewable energy and energy efficiency offer actually 90% of the mitigation measures against climate change. And more importantly as well, energy efficiency alone actually can deliver up to 35% of the cumulative CO2 savings by 2050. And what we see is that these two categories overall will require approximately 2.4 trillion US dollars per year of investments globally to reach out the target that we've set up on the Paris Climate Agreement, which is to stay below the 1.5 degrees. And I think today we are on the range of 600 billion invested every year. So you can see that the gap is very large. So there is a large opportunity to further invest into this industry, but this is not happening due from one side some barriers on the financial side, but also on the demand side, where customers are not adapting the most energy efficient and renewable energy solutions on the market. So why is this happening? Within the project, we looked a little bit at the barriers that are happening on the demand market side, and what we see is that in general, the barriers repeat themselves across several countries. The first one is that energy efficient solutions, as you know, are more expensive to buy upfront. The second part is that these aspects of energy efficiency requires a trust in the performance of the technology. And customers are not experts in those technologies. They become very complex. So there is a lack of trust in the performance to be achieved, and hence the payback of the investment you're providing into that asset. So there is really an uncertain returns associated to those technologies. As well, very important, there is a higher risk perception. So if you buy a new innovative technology and something happens and breaks down, how can you be sure that that entity will be there to replace it in time, especially if you have a critical business, like for instance, the supermarket chain that we've been discussing about within this framework, or a football field as well. You don't want within like a match something to happen within critical components that are used by the customers within a game. And as well on top, you have, of course, these businesses that have certain prioritizations of investments within their businesses. So for instance, a supermarket chain will want to maybe expand an area, buy more equipment, but also make it more pleasant for customers to walk into the supermarket and buy potentially more interesting products instead of, for instance, investing into the more energy efficient cooling technology used by the supermarket. And of course, there is a lack of knowledge on the customer side, on the maintenance side, and on the financing options. So looking at those barriers, we thought, okay, what can we do to bring forward a model that really tackle those barriers effectively? And here, just high level, we saw one opportunity in a model called servitization, which we expanded the name as efficiency as a service, which I will describe a little bit more in a few slides later. But it's really what happens. It's an innovative business model that allows for a business case to be created for energy efficiency to be implemented, but as well it's a business model that is aligning the profit on the economy side, but also on the social and planet side. It's not a new model, and it's actually a model that has been very much applied in, for instance, the printing sector or the solar industry and the transport sector more recently. And to give like more background to the audience, it's a model whereby technology providers, instead of selling the asset, they shift to a pay-per-use scheme. So it means that the customer is not doing anymore the investment into the asset, but they're accessing the service of using that asset. And instead, the investment to deploy the technology is done between the solution provider, who is expert in the technology, and a financier potentially, who is there to, instead of deploying the debt on the customer side, will deploy this on the solution provider side. And what we saw is that this type of approach, which is very common, of course, in the printing sector, has been absent in technologies which are more related to energy efficiency technologies, like for instance, heating, cooling, and lighting. And we see a tremendous potential in applying these type of technologies within those applications. So we launched the project of efficiency as a service, which for the audience to know is currently focused on 3 countries, which is Belgium, the Netherlands, and Spain. But we've been receiving a lot of requests from countries beyond those geographies. And as well, we see already activities happening outside of those countries, which is also why I invited Jonas from Danfoss to share their experience within this model. So what are the benefits from the different stakeholders happening in this model? The first one is that for customers, you don't have the upfront investment required. You have a reduced operating expenses because basically you're using a system which is more energy efficient, so your energy bill will be lower. You have a service which is completely off balance. You have no performance risks anymore because basically, since the asset is owned by the solution provider, it means that if the asset is not performing anymore or not in use anymore, you're not paying anymore for the service. So there is an incentive for the technology provider to really bring forward the technology that is very reliable. And lastly, of course, it means that the customer can really focus to invest into their core business. Then from the technology provider, it's really an opportunity to deploy top-notch technology and also to have a full view and control on the development of the technologies that they're deploying. So it means that within an asset and a contract that is being signed with the customer, they have an opportunity within that time frame to further improve the technology being implemented, because this is only benefiting the profit margin of the solution provider with the technology being implemented, which can be shared with the other stakeholders or not, depending on the contract that is signed. And then lastly, for the financier, it's really an opportunity to place actually funding into green opportunities and to accelerate the decarbonization of Europe. So there we see also a very strong pool for scope 3 activities of financiers, which can deploy their funds into opportunities that are low risk, but also bringing reliable returns and also accelerating the path to net zero. So where have we been active within the project? Very briefly, we were acting into 4 pillars. The first one is what we call capacity building. So reaching out to a lot of the different stakeholders to describe what is this model and how it can be implemented, but as well creating case studies, webinars, and interviews to share knowledge, especially with the end customers, on how to engage with such opportunities. Then the second pillar is design of tools. What do I mean with tools is what are typically difficult for companies to shift to a as a service model. So it means a standardized contract, a pricing model. How do you shift from selling assets to selling a service? And as well, what type of financial structures exist and can be used for you as a solution provider to deploy this type of services to your end customers. And the third pillar is a lot of awareness raising, like we're doing now with this session. And lastly, it's projects. So it's really guiding companies to implement this model, and as well to track what works, what doesn't work, what are some of the barriers, as well the market is evolving constantly. And to keep the ball moving within this project, we also decided to launch actually already a global alliance, which will continue after this European funded project, to enable for companies already active in the field to keep learning and to engage with different parties that are already in touch with the as a service model. So maybe I stop here for the interest of time, and I'll give the floor to Jonas.
Thank you very much, Dimitri. It was quite interesting to pass across your experience with this project. And I will introduce the next speaker as Jonas Hildebrand. He will show us a pilot, a case history for this project. Please, Jonas.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for having me today and giving the opportunity to actually building on what Dimitris has introduced and giving a case example that Danfoss has been implementing. I will speak about refrigeration as a service, as the project name or pilot name, and it's actually a solution for our supermarket customers at Danfoss. But before we go into this, 2 words on Danfoss. Who is Danfoss? Danfoss is a multinational technology engineering company, active in very, very different fields. So on the one hand, Danfoss Power Solutions, one of the segments, mainly providing solutions for the construction industry, forestry, and agricultural industry. Then we've got climate solutions and Danfoss drives as different applications. What is combining all of these things is energy efficiency. Danfoss is an energy efficiency company, and that's why efficiency as a service and energy efficiency as a service is also one of the topics that's of high interest for us. Today, we will speak about cooling, the cooling part, so supermarkets, where Danfoss is providing control systems and also a digital platform to monitor supermarket refrigeration systems. If we talk about refrigeration as a service, as one of the as a service models that Dimitris has introduced, why do we do this? We do this because we see exactly those trends and challenges that Dimitris has described on a higher level in the supermarket space. Our supermarket customers, so the supermarket chains, today face several challenges. One very big one is that for switching to new energy efficient solutions, there is a high investment need. And as Dimitris has also mentioned, there is many competing investments compared to energy efficiency, right? There's expansion, there might be even COVID measures, investing into plastics instead of refrigeration equipment. So all of these things stand in the way of investing more into the new technologies that are available in the market. Secondly, it is running a refrigeration system in supermarkets is a complex topic, and some of the supermarket chains are not willing to invest anymore into managing all the different stakeholders in the chain. So for us as a solution provider, it's also a possibility to manage these interfaces and provide value to our customers this way. Thirdly, in the supermarket space, and I think it's similar in many other industries, it is difficult for some of our customers to really take the total cost of ownership perspective. So higher investments that might pay off relatively quickly will still not be done because it's just the investments are not there, and there's a higher focus on low upfront investments rather than the full total cost of ownership along the life cycle. And then lastly, some of our customers don't have the critical mass to actually to develop the expertise that is needed for the up-to-date and more energy efficient solutions in the refrigeration space, where there's more complex technology, new refrigerants coming in, way more difficult to handle, way more difficult to control. So it's a challenge for all of these companies that are not able to actually develop the expertise themselves. That's why what has Danfoss done? We have created a refrigeration as a service solution where we address all of these challenges and have developed an all-in-one solution for our supermarkets. So we provide both the hardware, we design the system, we buy it we do buy it, and then we combine it with all the services that are required along the life cycle and offer it to our customer at a monthly fee. And that is then how the supermarkets will look like. Let me go one step back, or one step a bit more into details. What is, from our point of view, the main characteristics of these X as a service or servitization models? One element is that we always bundle the product and the services, and services are both say the field service, the maintenance, but also digital services that optimize the operation. Secondly, it is important to lower the threshold for our customers to hop on board on this service by the provider taking the responsibility for the performance of the system, and that's an inherent part of our model here. Thirdly, in order to create the value along the life cycle during the operations, we need to leverage the data, the intelligence from the data that we get through the connected products, through digital services, that one part of the ecosystem, in our case, it's Danfoss, providing this by leveraging that and optimizing the system throughout the life cycle. And then lastly, I already introduced it as one of the challenges. The provider, the technology provider, solution provider is the single point of contact for the customer, and then manages all the different stakeholders that are involved in providing the solutions, which may be service providers, which may be some equipment providers beyond what Danfoss provides. And then, of course, also the financing element that we focus on today in this session. So much on the, theory behind it and the conceptual topic when it comes to the refrigeration as a service. Next one, what is the promise of this solution that we have developed? And it is very much one-on-one matching the more general benefits that Dimitris was also highlighting, and we see this in the supermarket space. So let's go through very quickly. For the customers, what do we see? We see CapEx to OpEx, right? Those customers without access to capital can still invest because there's a financing partner in the back. Secondly, they have the opportunity to tap or to deploy the most efficient equipment, which they wouldn't have the opportunity without the system. Thirdly, what they get is both an environmentally friendly system, but also a system that is run in the most efficient way. So it's a very integral part of this solution to not only have the best equipment, but also run it in the best way. And there, the technology provider, as also Dimitris was introducing, has the expertise. We have the expertise. We have the knowledge about our systems and how to run them in the best way. And then just summarizing that, overall, it's then the most energy efficient system that the customer gets access to. For the solution provider, tech risk we had also already covered. We take the responsibility for running the system, so the customer doesn't have to care about any breakdowns anymore. If this happens, it's the responsibility of the provider. Why do we, as Danfoss, and why do we as a technology provider go into this field? On the one hand, it's a really good opportunity for us to get closer and more stable customer relationships, because we work directly with the customers and over a longer time period. Usually, in our case, it's 7 to 10 years, which is the life cycle of the systems. Secondly, as we know how to best run the systems, we will also be able to capture the value, and then it's up to the contracts, up to the negotiations, how to split this value between the different partners, between the financing partner, between the customer, of course, and then between us as the solution provider. And then thirdly, Danfoss has been a component manufacturer for the past 80 years, and this is where we have our expertise. For us, it's of course a way to deploy our most energy efficient equipment at the customer. This is the concept and the value proposition. 2 words on how we have made that work. So for us as Danfoss, it's not a field that we have a lot of experience in. So what we've said is we have the technology, but what we don't have and what we also don't plan to build completely on our own is project management skills in designing supermarkets and in running supermarkets ourselves and monitoring themselves. So what we've done is we've partnered up with a company called Omia Retail that is coming exactly from that field that Danfoss is not serving themselves, which is project management and service operations. And together we have brought this offering called Omia Solution in the end to the markets, and the market so far is Northern Europe, with the ambition, of course, to expand wherever this service model makes sense and is requested by the customers. Last slide before we move on to the next topic. What has been our learnings so far from a company perspective, from Danfoss perspective? Firstly, it is really something new. So we need to communicate what it is about. We need to communicate with all the stakeholders that are in the market today, that are well aware of the business models that have been in the market so far, and have to educate them about this complementing solution, about this new way of doing it, of having an as a service business model, opposed to how we've run the business before. So communicate, educate, and then of course also build trust into the solution. Secondly, one of the big challenges, or one of the big to-dos, is to really build an ecosystem of different stakeholders and partners to provide the service. Danfoss will never be able to do this on our own. OMIA Retail will not be able to do this on our own. We need financing partners. We need service providers actually doing the maintenance. So building that ecosystem and managing that ecosystem is one of the main tasks to fulfill. Thirdly, when speaking from a commercial perspective, of course, Danfoss, we need to sell this solution. And what is new compared to before is that there's a larger stakeholder set also at the customer side, because it is tapping into the financials in a different way than buying equipment is. There's also different stakeholders in the organization that we need to address. So mostly, we're not only speaking to the technical department, we're not only speaking to a procurement department, but most of the time there's someone from the financial department involved to understand the model, and then of course also give their recommendations how to implement it at the customer. And then fourth learning is, as it is a new model for most of the stakeholders in the cooling industry, in the food retail industry, we were really lucky and very happy to be able to tap into the knowledge, into the tools that have been developed by BASE, and could leverage quite a few of them, and really appreciate the exchange with other players, be it from the same industry or be it from adjacent industries that are also active in this space. This is where we stand today. We're really happy to continue this business model and complement, say, the Danfoss business with this service offering. The next part, or let's say in the next year, what will be one of the focus topics for us is actually dive a bit deeper into financing solution, and that's why I'm really happy to also be part of the discussion today. But so far, we have found a bit of financing model, and we see huge interest from different financing bodies. But we're always looking for expanding that and seeing whether there's any funding schemes available that we could actually build into our solution as well. I hope it was a good insight into how this can be applied in practice, and I'm happy to discuss further on refrigeration as a service or energy efficiency as a service once we're done with all the presentations. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Jonas. Very interesting what you presented, in particular the idea that soft skills, but strategical one, as communicate, educate, and build trust, are really powerful if we want to spread a culture of energy efficiency. And regarding energy efficiency, I'm pleased to introduce Thomas Messery from R2M Solution, that is going to present the third and last project about energy efficiency, supermarkets, and crowdfunding. Please, Tom.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks to all the previous speakers. I'll try to move quick through this presentation because I would enjoy the opportunity to have a little bit of discussion. We're putting up the presentation and we'll get started as soon as we get that up. And we'll hide that. Back into the presentation, thank you. And there we go, okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Thomas Meservy, R2M Solution, and I have the pleasure of being the project coordinator of this project called Superhero. And what it does, our big idea in door opener, and door opener is a very deliberate choice of words. Each time we bump into a supermarket, they tell us, we get calls all day from people that want to sell us things. And we are tired of being bombarded by everything. We don't have time for that. So the thing that has allowed us to talk to supermarket owners at the brand and store level has been this idea. It's a new way to connect to shoppers. That's what they want to do. It's not the energy efficiency, it's not the financing, it's a new way to connect to shoppers and build brand loyalty while saving energy and participating in the community. So one of the other main drivers for us has been community level actions. And let's not forget that supermarkets are always looking to open new stores in new communities. So relations with those communities affect the zoning and permissions and everything else on opening new store footprints in various areas. And we do that. We do make this new connection by making energy efficiency upgrades. And if we think of supermarkets, it's not hard. Do we have covers on the refrigeration system? Do we have renewable energy technologies? Are our HVAC systems up to date and are they maintained? Are there LED lighting systems? Very simple measures can go a long way into making sure that these stores are energy efficient. And then we share the benefits of that. So if we improve the energy efficiency of a supermarket by 10, by 20, by 30, or any %, could that be shared with the shoppers? Could that be shared with the community? And yes, it can via innovative financing schemes. And some of the hashtags we want to put on that is happy shoppers, happy staff, because sometimes the managers and owners of supermarkets state that their staff are the ones they also want to motivate. Climate Green Deal, Sustainable Development Goals, Renovation Wave. So these are also some of the terms, depending on which stakeholder you're talking to, can be door openers. So introductions, we are a Horizon 2020 project. We did respond to an innovative financing call topic. We are a consortium of 9 partners. And we hope that you'll follow us. Please go to our webpage, go to our Twitter, get curious, click and get onto our newsletter list, our stakeholder community. And we're interested to know where you're from and what brought you to the workshop. Please contact us. We're here. And the project brochure, the official line, where we aim to provide a replicable financial scheme for energy efficiency investments in small, medium-sized supermarkets based on stakeholder and community involvement. We work with 3 innovative financing schemes: energy performance contracts, as a service models, what we just heard about, and crowdfunding cooperative initiatives. And what we're looking to do is create a win-win-win in the ecosystem that was described before. We have an ecosystem between the different stakeholders. We want all sides in that ecosystem to win. And this project was well received because of its unique approach, somehow engaging the shopper and connecting that to loans that are already in place. Some of the objectives in our project are the scheme to make a list of ad hoc measures that are appropriate specifically for supermarkets, to implement them, to replicate it, and to do some work on policy and standardization. And this is just a visualization of the win-win and some benefits, but I'll move. So let me now talk about results, not what the project aims to do, but results that we have achieved. So one is a process, and a process and a framework may not seem like such a result, but maybe it is our most important result because it is how to approach supermarkets and to engage them and to make them understand what we are doing. And it's not hard, but it allows people to understand. So we discover a supermarket. If they need an audit, we give an audit. If they don't need an audit, some people just say, hey, we know we want a PV on our roof. Let's not talk about anything else. Let's just get after that. Fine. Then we approach them in that way. Once an audit is done, then there's a design for solution, a business plan for solution. If we're going to engage the community, engage the shoppers, then we need to connect that to the marketing department. We need to make a marketing and advertising campaign. Then we need to finance it. If the crowd is involved, we run a crowdfunding campaign, and then we implement, monitor, and celebrate success. And this process adapts to the type of supermarket you're working on or working with, the type of stakeholder you're engaging at that supermarket, and how it is owned. So let me describe that a little bit. So supermarkets, we know we have them in the urban centers, so boutique shops. We know we have them in the periphery. Those stores are probably an individual building instead of a room in a building. And that individual building probably has a supermarket. And then we have these super centers on the outer ring of cities. And if you look at any of those three typologies, there are probably some that are very old, there are some that are kind of middle age, and there's some that are new. And if you look at them again, you will probably find some that are owned by a brand, or they are owned by a franchise owner, or they are co-owned. So we have some shops we're working with where it's 30% brand and 70% franchise owner. And if you run a program that connects to coupons, who pays for that coupon is an interesting discussion to map out. And example number one, so here's a brand store. So this store is new. And we thought, my goodness, why are you bringing us a new store? And the reason is, typically when you work with a brand, they want to show off their best property. They want to show that everything is great. And even on a brand new store, there's always something you can do. Looking at this store, why isn't there PV on the roof? Why don't I have shading in the parking lot? Why don't I have solar being produced in the parking lot? Why don't I have EV parking spaces, which will give credits towards BREEAM or different certifications that are available, and also attract my shoppers? And why don't I have an EV bike point to promote sustainable transportation with my community? So likely characteristics, if I'm working with this brand, or the money's not needed. That brand has the money, they have a plan, they have their interventions mapped out until 2027. They have an energy management manager, they have a program, they have energy audits in place. They already have technology providers they work with. So it may seem like they have everything, but what they don't have is this model. So how could they do something new with their customers? So let's imagine they did put PV on the roof. Why not offer to that client, to that shopper, a 5% interest rate? Maybe a 6% interest rate if they have your loyalty program card. Because that shopper, they can't get that interest rate at the bank. It's not there. So really what the store is doing is offering an opportunity to these shoppers. So I would approach it in a different way maybe than the green survey of, would you be willing to donate money to my stadium in return? No, I would take it from a different angle. If you want to be an investor and you want a good investment and you want to contribute to the planet, come to me, because I'll give you 5% and the bank doesn't. I am better than a bank, and you can contribute to the planet, and you can do that at your shopping store and get a free coffee. So this is, in a nutshell, the type of argument we would use. The challenge is how to split the cake, because any intervention will have a business model. There will be a return of investment, and one has to decide how much does the technology provider get, or the as a service provider. How much benefit does the supermarket retain? How much does the project developer retain, and how much goes to the crowd? And if we look at this example that we just talked about, I think we covered some of those benefits. The relationship with the clients. If you're running a crowdfunding campaign, you're going to get new clients. I had never heard one of the supermarkets we're working with. As soon as I want to invest with them, I got their loyalty card. I've now shopped in their stores because I'm curious. So I became an activist and a promoter for their stores. And when I go in their stores, I'm trying to think of how can I include them in a European project? How can I bring them renewable energy technologies? How can I be involved in their sustainability transition, for example? So it's a very interesting means to reach people in a new way. So that's example one, the new store. Here's example number two. Imagine this boutique store that is existing, it's old, and it's a franchise owner. Here it's different. probably this shop owner doesn't have money. Probably they're not an energy efficiency expert. Probably they don't have an energy manager. Probably they're just trying to get by and they have a low margin business. So here's a case where they probably want someone to help, but they don't want to invest a lot. And as a service type thinking becomes very interesting. So how can we reduce the barriers for this individual? And the same core mechanism can be used. Probably there's not the community element because it's not at brand level, but probably here the crowd is not as much for the brand and image of it. It's probably more for the cash flow, and it's probably more for the technical assistance. And perhaps it's less focused on the marketing campaign, but there is still the gain of, hey, I'm bringing new people to my store or engaging my staff and my shoppers in a different way. And some benefits here are working with a third party. Don't have to go to a bank. Maybe my balance sheet hasn't been perfect over the COVID crisis. There are some ways to be quicker. So there's also a way to make a win-win scenario. So those are two examples to bring out some of the concepts. Result number 2. So let me switch to the results. So we're supposed to develop financial schemes, and we identified 3 as we started out, and those are crowdfunding, performance contracting, and as a service. But our result, what we've learned is, let me link it to the last presentation. We actually want to be an as a service for bundling these different kinds of models. And what do I mean by that? Maybe we want to use the Danfoss refrigeration system and as a service, while at the same time we directly purchase PV and LED technologies. And because I want to engage the shoppers, I also want to involve crowdfunding, and I have an investor that wants to cover at least 30%, probably the technology provider. We're finding that out. And potentially there is incentives. So in Italy, if I install an Industry 4.0, a refrigeration system that has IoT technologies that can tell me how it's performing, then I can deduct 65% of its cost on my taxes. So we want to be able to put all of this together so that the supermarket doesn't have to deal with it and offer it as a service. So fine, the refrigeration system has a payback period of 7 years, the PV of 10 years, the LED of 4 years. It doesn't matter. At the end, we'll work out a business plan as a service and offer that to the supermarket as an ESCO. So this is the concept. What we find challenging is conceptually that's simple, but the contracting can be difficult, because if I want that incentive on the refrigeration system, there needs to be a direct purchase of that system, but I want to offer it as off balance sheet and as a service. So we're still working through how to combine these in the best way, but the overall approach is supermarket, you don't have to worry about it. Someone else is going to help you through that process. Result number 3, and I know that's fast, but we have 4 more minutes and we want to allow some time for questions. Result number 3, roles in contracting. We found, as we talk, 2 brands that have different layers of decision-making. Everyone gets confused about the roles. And I'll just share quickly, a project proponent is the person that's putting it all together. It's the ESCO that's offering the as a service. The supermarket could be the proponent, but we're finding they don't want to ask their clients for money directly. That's the wrong marketing message. They likely prefer someone third party, like an ESCO or a technology, anyone that wants to step in this role of project proponent that puts it all together on behalf of the supermarket. Then there's the project owner, and that's broken up because it may be the brand, it may be the franchise owner, or it may be co-owned, depending on the ownership structure and legal filing of that company. There are brand owners, there are franchise owners, and then there are building owners. We're finding out that if I'm a boutique shop, I'm probably renting my place in that building, and maybe I do or do not own the parking area, and maybe or not, I have parking along the street, and if I want to put in EV, that affects permissions. So who owns the property is another layer that you need to consider. Then there are the service and product suppliers such as Danfoss. Then we have the superhero crowd lending platform, and then there's these investors on the side. And it is a challenge to align everyone around a common interest and to have contract types that match what you want to do. And I put there misperceptions of risk, because if we talked to one supermarket, the first thing they said is, Yeah, but you're going to do the project and you won't pay our shoppers, and our shoppers are going to hate our store. So how do you accomplish the trust such that they have confidence that those payments will happen? Next result, crowdfunding platform. So we have developed, and this is now IP, a white label, a crowdfunding platform where we can put our projects online and the crowd can invest in these projects. We've done that with Enter2Crowd. Enter2Crowd is Italy's #1 energy efficiency crowdfunding platform. They also have a vertical, a white label like this one for Enel. They also have a vertical and white label for Falk Renewables. So the idea of us having a white label is it's not new, it's not strange. And what it does is it connects us to the already established 4,000 wallets in their ecosystem. There are 4,000 activist investors. I am one, and I'm waiting for the next opportunity to get my 4, 5, 6, or 7%. As an ESCO, we put a building retrofit project on the Enter2Crowd platform, not Superior, Enter2Crowd, and it got funded in 35 minutes for 150,000 euro. So the investors are there, the money is there. It's not the money that's the barrier. And our challenge is to grow this eco from 4,000 to 5,000 to 6,000 with shoppers from supermarkets. And the more we can grow that community, the more the multi-sided platform will ignite. On the left, we just see some examples of how projects can be placed in the system, showing the region, how much has been funded to date, how many days are remaining. Crowdfunding platforms have various visualizations. There is a back end, there is a vetting process, and there are financial rules for this. And this is why we've done a white label, because as a research project, it's too hard to do all of that correct. Instead, we've partnered with someone that's already developed that and offers a white labeling service. So now we have one, and it's the world's first, dedicated to supermarkets or retail points. Because retail, if I'm selling shampoo, I still have a connection to shoppers, or if I'm selling automobiles, or if I'm selling any other product. And what we're doing is connecting buildings, energy efficiency owners, and product buyers or shoppers. And on the right, we can see the concept that if I want to promote local, I can offer a higher interest rate than if I want to promote nationwide or random investor. So I can incentivize and reward different investors in different ways. I switch from our crowdfunding platform to additional results. So on our webpage, I hope you go there. We have our deliverables. There are some interesting ones that show catalogs of renovation measures for supermarkets, some of the exciting technologies we're working on. Inbound, upcoming, we have a nice decision support tool on business planning. So if I put together PV, LED, HVAC system, refrigeration system, and then I put in, I've got this incentive, I've got this much interest rate from the crowd, and I have an investor, how much are they going to charge me, cost of capital, and then also the supermarket wants to put in 20%. How do I adjust those things to get an approximation of a business plan that allows me to think about how I want to structure it? That's up and coming within a month or two, and will be available online. We have a technology partner program that we are shaping, and I'm very happy to learn of energy as a service. And probably we should make some linkages, because we want to attract and work with and be a part of building ecosystems like the one. Our pilots coming up. Quickly to show our pilots, this is an interesting case study. In Italy, we're working in Padua with Naturisi. And what we're doing there is we're putting 3 store managers together under one crowdfunding campaign, and one place is going to get PV, a second place is going to get PV, and a third place is going to fix the refrigeration system and do relamping. That's all going to go under one business model, because those 3 stores are owned by the brand. We'll put it on the crowd, and then we'll implement. And the figures are still to update, to refresh, and to finalize. But we have some approximations on how that will be. And it also is very sensitive on energy prices that have changed dramatically, and what predictions you want to make on those in the future. But it's not the financial model that's the key here. It's now they have 3 branch managers working together on energy efficiency, which is new. And they have someone that's helping them shape that and work with the product suppliers to make that happen. That manager of the 300 NetWC stores has the challenge of trying to do it all and doesn't have time. So anyone that comes in and helps the ecosystem in a model that has these extra benefits can be interesting. In Spain, we are working with 3 different supermarkets, 2 under the brand Dia and 1 under the brand Coviran, where for each of them, an audit has been done. So the hook with these stores was specifically they got a free energy audit. And that was nice because it's within the European project, but you can't always give free energy audits as a business. So we have to understand how we bundle that and get it paid for in the performance contract. But they have a series of renovation measures at these different stores with different payback, and then we'll make decisions with the store. And right now the store is more used to having a traditional energy performance contract, but we're trying to challenge them with, okay, good, but would you like to engage your shoppers? Would you like to release 10% of this investment or renovation cost to your shoppers to pilot a program? And it's a discussion we have ongoing. One of the barriers we have is that we heard from Eurocrowd at the beginning, and now there are rules so that crowdfunding companies in any nation can operate Europe-wide. But our Italian crowdfunding platform, Italy has not ratified the new directives from the European Commission. So we're delayed in having our crowdfunding platform available in Spain until Italy ratifies this. Once they do, the platform will be available also in Spain, and we can set up on those Spanish projects. So up and coming, we look forward to our first pilots. People need to see this done, so they go out and do it and replicate it. And I think after we have a couple of these case studies done, it will be not 10 times faster, it will be 100 times faster, ready to go to scale. And then we will be making many more presentations like this, more technical, more dedicated, and great discussions for capacity building to reach out to companies to share the idea. So everyone, happy if you follow and contact us. And that finishes my part of the presentation. And thanks for your attention. Stay here for questions. Okay. And Christine, what I'll do is switch shares and you can take over the questions part.
So thank you very much, Tom. We have questions just arriving. The first 2 questions are for all the speakers. And they are different, but I mean, it's for in general terms. So the first one is the geopolitical situation we are facing able to affect in some way your projects, your all 3 projects? I don't know who wants to speak first. Tom, while you're here, and maybe then after Dimitri and...
No, I have a 10-second answer. Perhaps at first the supermarkets were not so fast to want to work with us, and maybe now it's more, why haven't we already done it now that energy prices are high? Of course, as energy prices go higher, they want quicker solutions, so sure.
Okay.
But energy security, it's a great selling argument coming up, and we need to include it in our literature. But still, I think the most important thing for us is to have the contracting in place and to have people see the first examples. And once the first examples are done, everyone will want to follow.
Yeah, for us from Danfoss side, it's also giving us a lot of tailwind. Of course, both the energy prices and then the source where our energy will come from. There's a huge demand now for renovation of electricity system, of the refrigeration systems. Heat recovery plays a really big role now, and it's all connected to some kind of investments. And that's why, yes, we see a lot of tailwind from the current situation that we're facing.
Yes, the same is also true for us. With now the skyrocketing energy prices, we see that the interest is increasing. However, also the COVID-19 situation in football especially was kind of hard because there were dismissals and people could not go to the stadiums, watch games and so on. And there was also slightly this feeling about asking now the crowd for support, whether this is a good idea, whether it affects the image also in a negative way. So some question arised.
And this was the same concern that we expressed, but just to point out once again, and because I think the owners need to be coached through that. It's not that you're asking the stadium for money, it's that you're giving the fans an opportunity to participate in a new way.
Yeah, exactly. They often perceive it as donations, but it's not donation-based crowdfunding in our case. So it's really an investment opportunity where you get a payback. And often the management board doesn't really grasp this, in my opinion.
And what we found, what they're used to doing is the word donation is already known and it's comfortable, but they don't want to donate anything on their structure, PV on their roof. What they want to do is use their community to donate PV to the local park or a local school, which is noble, it's good, but what we're trying to do in our project is make supermarkets more energy efficient. So putting something on a school is noble and good, but it's not our focus.
Okay, there's another question for all speakers. How do you overcome bureaucratic and hidden costs that sometimes affect the energy efficiency measures and actions? Bureaucratic and hidden costs. I don't know, maybe here is different the situation among European countries, but how do you cope with this?
Maybe for us in Azerbaijan, the current situation, maybe now it has changed, but before it was that energy prices were super low. So investments in renewable energy don't pay back. So it's not economically efficient. Then again, donation could be a solution to showcase something. But our analysis show that with the current subsidies of electricity prices, it's not worthwhile, so economically speaking. But for hidden costs, probably the other speakers have more ideas about it.
Jonas or Dimitri?
Rather the question, what are you referring to specifically on hidden costs? So in what direction is this question going?
Yeah, I think that hidden costs are like, sometimes local governments just want to put some taxes if you have to renovate stores, for instance, or other things like that. So I think the hidden cost can be that. Or costs for safety or building construction, you need in some way to do some energy efficiency measures or.
We had some examples. In order to participate for certain incentives, then those incentive programs, you have to get your account certified, or you need things from your administratively. This could be an example. A roof didn't have the safety line that you need to put in the PV system. So who pays for that? As part of the intervention, or is the storage grid? Yeah. So this could be an example. Jonas, there's a question before we finish there, and Dimitri, I wanted to make sure I asked the as a service crew. So in Italy, we keep having these incentives or programs where, if you install a heat pump, or if you have this highly Industry 4.0 refrigeration system, then you can deduct 65%. If I use an as a service approach, or if I'm an ESCO that purchases from Danfoss and we give that to a supermarket, have you found a workaround so they can still take advantage of incentives, or it kills it?
I'm not I'm not aware of this specific one in Italy that you're referring to, but we have had a similar challenge actually in Denmark on heat recovery and using the heat from the supermarkets and feeding it back, selling it. And there our only workaround was, and that was luckily already initiated quite early, was actually a legislation change. So it was, we couldn't work around it. We needed to wait and lobby for changing the rules. And that is,
Yeah.
of course, a really big effort, right? I mean, depending on the scheme that you want to influence.
And practically, so maybe we need to leave certain interventions out of our model and provide bridge financing to someone so they can afford the model and work multiple. It seems contractually a mess, but this is what we're trying to figure out. Do we try to put ourselves in that position or just completely avoid it?
Yeah, but I agree. It can be a very big portion, right? Or it can be a very important factor, right? If you can't tap into these pools anymore, I mean, then the entire model might not be as attractive anymore, right? So, yeah, I think it's as I also wrote in the chat, it is to a large extent still national or even regional, right? Depending on the schemes that you have to deal with. And the Italy one, thanks for pointing that out already. That there might be one a hurdle we haven't gone to Italy yet.
Okay. There's another question for Danfoss. How does it work? The energy efficiency as a service for small stores, for small departments, and not big chain, for instance. And this is also related in some way for Superhero, as it's related to supermarkets.
It works the same way. I think one of the big one of the prerequisites to make this model a success, say so from the technological side, is really to have the stores connected to central monitoring systems, so we can leverage the infrastructure of monitoring and optimizing the stores. And then it doesn't matter that much anymore whether we're talking about 100 stores or whether we're talking about 1-2 stores. Because they will all be connected to the same backbone, basically, and we can optimize them all. But overall, it's always, I mean, it's a project business, right? So we need to look at every project. There's individual calculations for every project, and then the payback or also the attractiveness might differ between between different categories of stores. As Thomas, you had also mentioned, right? There's some older ones that definitely need bigger investments, and then there's newer ones where you only can put the cherry on the cake, basically, right? And we have to take all of that into account to see what the best model is. And there might also be customers where it's not attractive, right? Our model, because they have access to all the capital that they need.
Yep.
Okay.
And maybe we can ask Francesca before we close. I think we're at time. Francesca, how does Eurocrowd get involved in lobbying? So there is this interesting new directive related to making crowdfunding European-wide, that the company in one country can operate in another country, but each nation has to, of course, ratify that. How can I have you help speed up Italy? That's my question. Or how do I lobby as an active stakeholder, activist? Yeah, Francesca, you're muted, or maybe we lost Francesca. Yeah. I'll follow up afterwards on that then, because I need to know. Very good. And I think we can.
Okay, so if we don't have other questions, I would like to thank all the speakers. But I think that this is the only one step, only the first milestone, because the projects have a lot to do and a lot to share together. So I hope there will be another opportunity to talk and to share ideas and to share results. Maybe the next year at Sustainable Places, it would be a great occasion to see again and to speak again and share our pilots, the successful pilots. So I really thank each of you. It was a pleasure to host here in Sustainable Places in Nice, although hybrid. Hopefully next year we'll be all in presence. And thank you very much for Greenfoot, Benjamin. Thank you very much for to Jonas and Dimitri for their project EAAS. Thank you very much for Francesca. We will keep in touch for Eurocrowd because it's very interesting, the role of lobbying, and we need it. So thanks all the participation here physically here in Nice, and we can close this section. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
See you.